Hello everyone and welcome to this After Effects scripting tutorial. I know it's been a while, I've kind of been on a break and I've kind of been burnt out by tutorials, but I'm starting to get back into it and find some really cool topics that I'm into. So today we're going to be going over the new scripting features which involve allowing us to select individual characters and paragraphs inside of text. This should allow us to essentially take a piece of text like this one here and individually style and modify different sections of it. This has been something available in Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, but now we finally have access to something as advanced as this in After Effects. Another cool thing is that recently they also added support for locating and getting the fonts installed inside of After Effects. So with that, we'll be able to do things like randomize the fonts in our text based on paragraph or character or text, and do a whole bunch of other cool stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button down below if you enjoyed this video, and of course leave a comment if you have any questions or tutorial requests, and check out the links in the description for products, Discord, etc. So as of AE 24.2 beta, we now have options to do the character range and paragraph range. So if you do not have your beta updated, make sure you go into your Creative Cloud desktop app and update it so that you have at least version 24.2. And it actually seems like in the newest build, they added a couple more options, but these won't necessarily apply for us today. We have ExtendScript here hooked up to After Effects Beta, and I have a big text block here that says, I've decided to write a long string of text to see how we might use the new beta features and select individual characters or chars, words, paragraphs, etc. The first thing we need to do is actually grab a variable for this text layer. So this is pretty standard After Effects scripting stuff. I'll zoom in a tad here and we'll say var layer is equal to app.project.activeItem, the active composition we're going to assume. And we can say layer 1, or you can also say, of course, selected layer 0, depending on how you want your selection to be. In this case, I'll just do layer 1. And now we need to get the text properties, so we'll refer to our guide. We can even just go down to character range here, and we can see we're going to need a text document to get the range of our characters or paragraphs. So the text document is basically equivalent to this right here. So what I'm going to do is say var text document is equal to layer dot property Adobe text properties. And we're first going to check what this is, just so you can see how a bit to make sure you have the right object and things like that. I'm going to write line text document, and of course you can debug this however you want. We're just going to run it. You can see we get a property group. What happens if we say get the value? We're going to get undefined. So I'll just load up my PDF version of the guide here and search for Adobe text document. And this will tell us the match name here. So I believe we need to get the text properties and then the text document. So we'll say dot property. Oh, excuse me, we already have the properties, and now we need to say Adobe text document. And now you can see when we get the value of our text document, we have our entire bit of text right here. I've decided to write blah, blah, blah. And now we can start to figure out how we can manipulate it outside of the usual way we do in After Effects. Usually, we could then go in and access all of the text document properties. Things like the font color, whether it's a stroke or a fill, whether each of those are applied, what the actual colors are, and all the other text properties. And actually, aside from these properties we're going over today, there's been a lot of other useful changes in After Effects 24.0. You can see all of this font object and text document updates. We now have access to a lot more of the stuff to modify text than we had before. So like before, you couldn't do things like indent, direction, kerning, and all this kind of stuff. You now have access to that. And not only that, we can now apply it to individual characters and things like that. So let's start with character range. Here we have paragraph range. We want character range right here. We need to take a text document .character range and then a character start and a signed character end. The character start is an unsigned integer, so basically the index of whatever we want it to be. And then the signed end character should also just be an index. So let's say text document dot character range. And let's go from characters 0 to 20, let's say. And when we alert that, we're going to get character range is undefined. We might need the text document to be the actual value of it. There we go. Or no, that's actually going to display just the text character range. I can see in this case, in the example they posted in the beta discussion, they just used the source text.value, and then they stored the character range like that. So let's say var range1 is equal to text document.character range, which we want to 20 again. Let's say give me range 1, and we'll modify this until we get it to work. In this case, it's literally just giving us the text character range 0 to 20, but it looks like there's a text property within it maybe. So let's say .text. There we go. I have decided to So it does tell us character range 0 to 20, which is interesting that it gives us that instead of like a character range object or a string object. But if we get the text of a particular range we've selected, we can then see what it is. So we can do things much more smart and dynamic than this. How do we get individual words in a big chunk of text like this? Well, all we have to do is take the text and split it by the space. So we can say var text reference, because I can't technically split the text document. I can split one-to-one string, which has the same text. So what I'll say is text reference is equal to our text document. And that's going to give us the whole range of text. And instead of just having the whole text, I'm going to say dot split by a space character. So now text reference is going to be an array of words. If I wanted to, I could say for var t equals 0, t is less than our text reference dot length, t++, and each time we're going to write the line of our text reference index t. And this will give us a console output of our whole text string word by word. I believe we need to convert it to a string first. And there we go. Word by word, we have written out here. That's one way we can get all the words. Now we can't then say range 1 for our particular word. We're just going to use the words as a sort of index reference. Because how do we know the character range indices that we want to go? We could just be random and say 0 to 20, but that could be random text. Let's say we just want range 1 to identify the very first word. We have text document.character range. It's obviously going to start at 0, but how do we know that it's just I, and we want to end the index there? I'm going to create an analogous one-to-one array that controls all the start indices of each word. So I'm going to say start indices, and for each text reference, we're going to say start indices.push, and we're going to say text reference. Now we can't use index of for an array in AEscripts 3. This is a huge annoyance. So this needs to be, we need a text version and an array version. So this one we're not going to split. It's just going to be our text reference with pure text, pure string / text. And this one is going to be our text in array form. And then our start indices is just going to indicate the index of each word in the whole string. Now we'll say text reference, index of text reference array, which we need to be looping through, index t. And now let's go ahead and just say, at the end of all this, show us our start indices. Expected end parentheses. And there we go. First word starts at 0, second word starts at 2, third word starts at 7, etc., etc. We can also do this to get the end indices if we want. And basically for this, it's going to be slightly different in logic. We're going to say if t plus 1 is valid, basically if there is a next index, otherwise something else. We're going to say end indices dot push. What are we going to push? We're going to push our text reference, but instead of t, we're going to say t plus 1 because we want the next index. But that also doesn't tell us quite when it ends, because we need to subtract 1 after the fact. Because don't forget there's the space, so we don't want it to end with after the space, we want it to end before the space. If there is no t plus 1, it means we're on the last item. So we have a last item handler. And for that, we're just going to say end indices dot push text reference dot length, because it's going to end at the very end there. So now we have our start and hopefully working end indices. It looks like it's giving us -1 for everything. So let's review here. End indices dot push. We're looking at our entire text reference, entire text string. We're going to get the index of the next word. So what happens if I just do that? I think we need to move the minus to here, and that should be good. So I starts at 0, ends at 1. Have starts at 2, ends at 6. So now we have a full list of our start and end indices. Maybe there's an easier way to do that, but I just prefer to kind of have variables to represent everything, and then we can easily modify those if needed, if we wanted to apply randomization or math or whatever to those. So now we have start and end indices, and we can use them to cut however we want. Let's say we want word number 5. To get word number 5 in our range here, we now just have to say start indices, and remember arrays are -1 of what you expect them to be, so it should be index 4, and then end indices index 4. Let's go and comment out these, and we'll say right line range 1, and that gives us an error. Character index is outside of the range of text bounds. Let's see what these actual values evaluate to. Start indices 4 and end indices. We get 18 and 2. Why is our end indices like that? 0, 1, 2. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Why is this turning to 3? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. What if we try a different index? I don't know why index 4 particularly is causing an issue. So in this case, we have a character range of 15 to 17, which is accurate. I believe that's for the word 2, and we can check by grabbing our range1.text, which now says 2. Now the ultimate goal here is to be able to sort of modify per character styles, but first I want to see if I can modify this particular word based on this range text. So I'm going to say range1.text. We can modify it to whatever we want. So instead of the word 2, I have decided I will instead. Let's see if it automatically updates. It doesn't give us, it doesn't seem to update it here. I think we have to like reapply it, just like we would normally with a text document. There is a reference here to the actual script they used. I don't know that it shows the application necessarily. One click, check selection, apply settings, and text modified here. That's UI text though. Yeah, it looks like we're just using a set value or keyframe. So let's go ahead and peep that really quick. We're just using target property dot set value. Our target property, however, is what? Our source text. So let's go ahead and say if our text document dot set value Actually, I think we need to use the text properties. So I'm going to make a variable for text prop. This is standard for After Effects text selection. And we'll say text prop.setValue. Do we just update the text document? Or do we have to use the range? Set value is undefined. It shouldn't be. Let's undo this. Let's just write out the long way. I think it's probably supposed to reference the Adobe text document without the value. There we go. Let's quickly add a undo group. We can probably just wrap this. Wrap this in a function. App.begin undo group. Text mods. Run main. App.end undo group. That way, we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. We can easily undo it. That also means we need to make sure we have an active layer. So we have, I decided to write a long string of text. When we run this now, decided I will write a long string of text. So that's the basic way we can then basically take a character range and then modify it like that. That's something you could basically already do, but I just wanted to show how to do it with the range selection. It's important that we understand kind of how to build this so we can modify it better in the future. You can easily grab the source text at any time, say replace the word to with I will using a standard string replacement, and it would do the same thing, but this is just getting a little more nitty-gritty. But now we can actually have the base to now modify the styles individually. So this tutorial basically ends up being more of like a After Effects scripting text updates, which is totally fine. There's been a lot of cool text updates. Now let's go ahead and move on to styling this. So it looks like we can apply just the normal text document properties to our range. This means that I can say, not only do I want to change the range 1 text, I want to say range 1 dot, say, fill color, and let's make it red. Okay, and that's changed up the selection because we changed the words. So let's undo to our original example and run it. And it looks like it's highlighted I, but not will. Interesting. Do I need to change it after? On that? There we go. So we need to change the text after we change the style. If we change the style before we change the text, it's going to only modify that original character. And now we can modify whatever we want. I want to get access to the fonts now. So checking out the new features, we now have access to fonts. And that's something I've always wanted to do in After Effects, is to be able to get and control the fonts. So if we go down here to version 24.0, we now have app.fonts. So we're going to get a list of our fonts. We'll just do it right before our main. I want to know how many fonts there are. And then I'm going to pass the fonts into our main function here. And I'm just going to create a quick repo called AEscripting text updates. And now I don't have to keep saving it, and you guys can have access to this code. So we are going to get a list of all the fonts here. Let's see how many we have. Undefined. Let's make sure fonts is valid. We have a fonts object. What can we do with the fonts object? We have to say .all fonts. Interesting. Is that an array? What's the length of all fonts? 104. Okay. So we'll pass fonts.all fonts instead of just fonts. We have 104 fonts, and these are all the sort of match names. So these are the names we want to use when we apply it to the text property. I'm going to zoom out slightly here. And font server revision. Get font by ID, that's pretty useful. We can get it by the PostScript name. But we really just want to pass in the fonts here. So we're going to grab range1 dot fonts, and we're going to say math.floor. We're going to basically choose a random font by saying math.floor. math.random multiplied by our fonts.length. And this is all going to be choosing a random number within our fonts. Again, we've modified our text, so it's giving us a weird error there. We need to handle this error better. We'll go back to the original and run it. And now, if I highlight over this particular text, I don't think it's actually changing the font. Let's see. Let's store this in a variable and alert font. Pick a font. Let's see what this gives us. Don't have an active comp, of course. In this case, it's giving us like 5 fonts. Why is that? Try it again. It's giving us a font, but with all of its variations. So that's not necessarily what I want. If we look at the font object itself, can you just get the normal font? I don't know that I can. So what I'm going to do, what's the length of font? Is it represented as text or an array? 6. So, okay. We're going to say font styles. And then once again, we need to randomize that. So our actual font is going to be a randomization of our font styles because it's going to get a random font and then give us the bold, the italic, all those versions. So we need to take all those versions and then get a random one of those by doing the same thing. Math.floor, math.random, font styles, .length. Now, I'll do all of our changes here. Run it. And now we're getting Lilawadi UI. Let's change it again. Again, it needs to be active. You can see the font is subtle, but it is indeed changing because a lot of the fonts do look similar. So now what I want to do is loop through all of our words, randomize the font, randomize the color, and see how it looks. Now, if you remember, I had an issue with like the 4th index of this. I don't know why. Character index ranges outside of the text document bounds. This was because for some reason this is giving me a 2 right here, and I don't know why. Everything else looks great except for that. So what I can do to debug this live is what I'm going to actually do here. I'm going to say if we know the exact index that's not working, e is equal to 4. We need to write some information down and figure out why this isn't working. So we're going to grab our value for this, and then our value for this. Now we'll go ahead and run it. You can see we get 18 and 2, which is right. 1, 2, 3. It starts at the word 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the word right. But why does it end at 2? Is it this that's an issue? Text reference array t plus 1 minus 1. What if I just do this? Is it going to give me 3 instead? Also gives me 2. Why is that? Oh no. It's 3. But that's wrong. Why is it giving me 3? Let's just alert. Sorry, let's console log the text reference array t and the text reference array t plus 1. It gives us the word right and a, which is correct. The current word is right, and the next word after that, t plus 1, is a. But the problem is the letter a appears in index 2 here, 0, 1, 2 basically, or 3 in the word have. The word have has the letter A. So we need to make sure that it's not just getting the index, but the exact word is that. So basically if we have an individual letter like A or I, it's going to find the very first index of that no matter how far in our analysis we are. So we need a way to check directly, is it the full word or is it just part of the word? An index of is a great way of checking if it's part of the word, but to get the full word, we need to do something different. So I can delete my debug, I think, for now, and we need to figure out what to use besides index of. I mean, this would be great in like a simple example, but to scale this with lots of words and stuff, it doesn't seem to be the way to go. So we want to check our entire text, our text reference. We don't want to find the last, we can't use index of, I feel like. We need to get the indices though. This is a great time to consult the Oracle and say, I have this AE scripting code and I'm trying to store the start and end indices of each word. However, when I come across word 5, which is just A, it ends up giving me the wrong end index because it finds the letter A in index 2 rather than the actual full word A I want. Sometimes it's really tricky, but we gotta figure out how to explain it. I agree, the issue is index of. And hopefully it doesn't give me something that's like AEscript 5 or something. I don't recall there being 2 arguments to index of. What's the second one? Search value and start. Oh. Oh. So we can use this. We just need to start from the current index, right? I think we just need to start from the current index, which is 0, and then we change it to that. We push our start indices. So we can do a check based on an index. That's pretty cool. So we'll say for all of our indices, right? Index of that is current index. Start index is undefined. Yes, it is. Word is undefined. Yes, it is. Our word is just our text reference. Array key.length. Okay. I think we did it. Let's undo it and apply it a few more times. Oh. XML descendants cannot work with this class. I think that was a mistake on my end. I had two dots there. Sweet. Is it removing a space after that? It feels like it is. Could just be the font. All right. So now let's loop through all of our start and end indices and do this whole thing. We're going to basically enclose this entire section here in a for loop. What are we going to loop through? Our start indices. So s is equal to 0, s is less than our start indices dot length, s plus plus. And our range one, we can just call it range, honestly. And we're gonna set a red fill color. We can randomize that by saying, I guess we can just do math random 3 times, right? And then we have a random font. The text, let's not change the text for now. Let's keep it as is. And then for each range is going to be our start indices S and our end indices S. Now, fingers crossed, we run this. We get an error, of course. Unable to set font, contains invalid character 32. Not sure about that one, but look, before we got stuck, we already got it working. Let's try it again. Okay, in this case, it really worked. It seems like there's a lot of fonts that like don't appear well. But this is the what you get when you randomize everything. Not everything is going to work perfectly. All right, so that's basically how we can use both the new font features in After Effects 24.0 as well as the new range feature in 24.2 beta to randomize individual characters and stuff inside. The last thing I want to do is take a quick look at the paragraph range. Because not only do we have access to our character range, which is super useful for super precise, we can also do a paragraph range, which accesses an entire paragraph. You could also do this on your own by, instead of separating by split spaces, you could separate it by split line delimiters or end lines, depending on your OS. And that should be an easy way to identify, like, if it's a very separate paragraph. So let's just see what happens if we change character range to paragraph range. You can see it's going to select our whole paragraph. In fact, I'm curious what our indices end up being here. So let's say, fix our keyboard. So we'll say start indices, and of course, end indices. In this case, we're getting 0 and -1. And I believe it said -1 means like there's no termination found. So let's see if I copy this and paste it below. Now if we run it, it's going to still select the entire thing. I think this is because of the way we're doing our text reference array. Perhaps we only need to use one of these. So not that one. Try R. Paragraph index range is outside of the bounds. You can see it's trying. It's trying its best. And I've also put in a lot of manual line breaks in here, which could also be affecting it. Paragraph index range outside of text document bounds. Yeah, that's possible. But what does S equal when you do that? Is it the very first one? 0. So it doesn't like 0 to 57. We say +1. Let's let's try this. Add like 2 to that. I'm getting to 1, 57 and 92. Yeah, so what's messing me up here is I manually went in here and did like line break. So this would be much better in a text box, which like manually will go to the next line without having to put in like line end breaks and stuff like that. So that's going to be your homework. If you want to get more into this, I don't find paragraphs as important as word by word or character by character modifications, but you can go in and figure that out based on this template code, which I'll be uploading momentarily. Paragraph range is a great new feature. Character range, also a great new feature. All of the fonts that we can now access in After Effects is amazing. And we can now go through and modify huge chunks of text automatically like so. It looks like there's a few bugs. Unable to set font contains invalid character 32. I think that means it's trying to apply like some kind of foreign font or something that doesn't have a supported character or something. But when we do get it to run correctly, it creates a pretty wild result, which is actually lagging a bit because we've just applied so many different characters. And in this case, we need to revert it back to the way it was. This should work, but it's not. So what I'm going to do is a try catch around this problematic code. I know what the problem is, but I just want to skip it. So I'm going to put a try catch. If it fails, run it. And now, no matter what, we should be able to get through and modify all of those styles based on their start and end indices using the new character range feature. So what I'm actually just going to do to avoid this issue is I'm going to put a try catch around the font setting. I know what the error is. I don't know why it's being caused, but if I can just skip over it, that's wonderful. So now we can go ahead and apply, and it should randomize. All right, so it seems like the font is actually pretty important. I tried putting a try catch around it to see if I could like skip over it, but whenever I get the error, it seems to mess things up. I think my variables might be messed up in some way. Let me check. 0, 2, 2, 7, 7, 15, 15, 18. It should be fine. It's just the font that messed up. And now it's only modifying the word right. I know this has been a long tutorial, and even the cat's kind of thinking so, but I forgot that this was set to 4. So now we can put the try catch around our font, and we should be able to finish up this tutorial. Put a try catch, so if it has an error, it just skips it kind of. And it will keep the default font. And then now when we apply it, it'll take a second because it's a lot of changes being made. We will get each text randomized in color, randomized in fonts, and it creates a pretty cool look, I gotta say. Like, I would I would like something like this hanging on my wall to some degree. It's a pretty thing to make. And lastly, just to remind you, there is a whole slew of new updates made. Go over to the scripting guide, check out the change log, and see all these new beta features that are coming out, as well as After Effects 24.0 had a huge amount of updates to add font support, as you can see it in all these font properties, as well as text document properties that we didn't have access to before, things that you couldn't modify with scripting and were kind of left in the dust on if you wanted to modify them. So although I didn't have enough time to go through all of the font object and text document stuff, it's been a pretty long video. Go check out these in the guide, and you can use them in tandem with your new character and paragraph range and font modification stuff, and go super crazy creating awesome automations with scripting, fonts, and text properties. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I know it's a longer one, but I wanted to go into super depth and go over some cool new stuff coming out. And also, I've just been burnt out with tutorials, and now I'm getting back into it. I've said it before, but this time I actually am, and I'm doing stuff that I want to do that I think will be popular and useful for everyone. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.